Hello, audio test 1 2 3, test 1 2 3. Hello, audio test 1 2 3, test 1 2 3. Is this good distance? Hello, audio test 1 2 3. Hello, test 1 2 3. Is this good distance? Hello, audio test 1 2 3. Hello, test 1 2 3. Is this good distance? Hello, audio test 1 2 3. Hello, test 1 2 3. Is this good distance? Hello, audio test 1 2 3. Hello. Is this repeating just for me? What's up? Is this good distance? Hello. Hello. Is I think now it's better. What is going on? Okay, yeah, I think I got that fixed. Good. Alright. Let me just do something. Okay, I think now it's good. Alright. We have one person watching, apparently. That's awesome. So awesome. I love that. Awesome. Okay, what we're doing today is we're doing a madness bracket with a lot of movies. Specifically 128 movies. These are 128 movies, are all movies that I watched, and are all movies that I considered great at some point in my life. Or specifically, the last time I watched them, I thought, all right, this movie's great. It's like 5 stars. It's awesome. I love it. I'd say I love. The last time I watched these movies, I genuinely loved them. Oops, sorry. Now, that might not be the case if I watch them again. You know, some of these movies I watched like 3 4 years ago. So of course, your feelings change. Your idea of what good art is changes. But I think in general, I'd say I love these movies. And they're all movies that are rated 5 stars on Letterboxd. Anyway, so how this works is like we pit one movie against another, see which one wins. You pit one movie against the other and see which one wins. Then these two movies fight and go to the next round. And at the end, there's going to be one winner, which should be my favorite movie of all time. Which I know what my favorite movie is. I think he's gonna win these fights, these little duels that we have. But yeah, I'm very interested to see which ones win these little rounds. Yeah. So let's get started. And this, by the way, like total random order. There's no specific order. All right. So first off, we have Stalker versus Neon Genesis Evangelion: The End of Evangelion. Man, I've seen which one I seen last. I think I've seen Neon Genesis Evangelion: The End of Evangelion last. I saw them like last year or something. No, I think this year probably. Um, and it's Neon Genesis Evangelion is really rewatchable movie because it's so short. It's like something like 80 minutes, right? It's sort of like 2 episodes, because the end of the show, the creator didn't like, and a lot of people didn't like. I'm not really a big fan of the end of the show, so this kind of like an alternate ending, and I think a much better ending. I never heard of anyone that like prefers the original to the movie which came out. Now, Stalker, I have like a complex relationship with Stalker. It used to be like my top one favorite movie ever, but then I rewatched it and just like the feelings weren't there. I don't know what happens. It's kind of sad when you fall in love with a piece of art, and then when you watch it again, it's like, oh, this it didn't hit quite right. I still think it's an amazing piece of work, and I still really, really loved it, and I hope to see it again someday. But it's just I didn't find it so deep the last time I watched it. Um, so right now, I think I would prefer to watch Neon Genesis Evangelion. To be honest, um, it's so beautiful. But the thing is also, it's also not a perfect movie, right? Like the second half is amazing. The second half is really something like the deepest, more messed up, most emotional things I've ever seen in my life. But the first half, it also has like a lot of fighting and walking around, like running. It's very action packed, which is like it's not my favorite part of NGE has never been like fights and action. It really the deeper stuff is what I like. Um, Man, it's really hard. I think. All right. I think I'm gonna go with Neon Genesis Evangelion. Yeah. How do I change the score now? Oh no. How do I do this? Oh no. What the hell? Damn. I'm not even signed up. Wait. I think I can fix this. By the way, these ads are great. These ads are amazing. Um. Yeah. Wait, there's something wrong with my screen. Just a second. All right. Is the audio good at all? Okay, Mateo Requena says sup, sup Mateo. I'm gonna send a heart. I'm gonna heart your comment. Oh no, I have to log in. Never mind. I'm not gonna. Sorry, sorry. Uh, Sup Mateo. What's going on? Um, Let me do that here. All right, all right. I think here I'm logged in, right? I think here is good. Um, oh shit. Uh, Now can I edit it? Yeah. So let's do it like this. I'm gonna give 1 point to the winner, and like 0 points to the loser. So I think Neon Genesis Evangelion wins. It's so good. Both very philosophical movies too, with very strong messages, and both very depressing too. But yeah, both really good movies. Um, yeah, I think Neon Genesis wins though. It's so good. Yeah, so it goes to the next round. Now, Barry Lyndon versus Abbas Kiarostami's Where's the Friend's House? Or Where is My Friend's House? Or Where's My Friend's Home? Or, when you're translating Persian, it's kind of difficult. So both movies that probably have nothing to do with one another. One is like this, Barry Lyndon is like this epic, grand thing that I love. And Where's the Friend's House is really it's just really small and minimalistic, and there's no music. No, there is music. There's like a there's like string instrument thing. I think it might just be a guitar. Um, yeah, but I think man, there's Where's the Friend's House is such like a sweet movie, but just Barry Lyndon is I love how really epic it is. There's like no way else to describe. It's just so epic. And there, I have a video in my channel about Barry Lyndon that I did like 2 years ago, maybe probably more. I don't post a lot of things on YouTube. That's why I'm doing this live stream. Man, I will say that the last time I watched Where's the Friend's House, I didn't like it as much. I saw it with my dad, and even though it was like a really sharp movie, Abbas Kiarostami is known for having like really slow movies. And I found the ending like a scene with like an old man. I'm not spoiling anything. Um, I found that scene a little too long. I wish it could have been a little better cut. Um, I have to go with Barry Lyndon. Barry Lyndon is just so good, man. Barry Lyndon is my favorite Kubrick movie by far. By far, it's so emotional. I think more emotional than anything he's ever done. Kubrick's not like the most emotional director, but there's much emotion in Barry Lyndon. All right, now The Godfather Part Two versus Psycho. There's no question for me. It's got to be The Godfather Two. It's just I think I prefer the first part because the second part in comparison is just really cold and very slow. It's like 3.5 hour movie. Psycho is like it's like one of those movies that you hear so much about, uh, saying that's like one of the best movies ever made or like the best horror movie. And then you watch it and it's like, yeah, it's great. It's everything everyone says it is. But I mean, it's been so like propped up. It's been so like there. It's definitely not overrated. It's definitely it, like deserves every praise. But but it's like there's no surprise. It's not even plot wise because everybody knows like the plot twist in the middle of the movie. Everybody knows that. Uh, but it's not even that. It's just like the rest. It's just like what you expect it to be, and that's not the case with The Godfather Part Two. The Godfather Part Two is a really, I mean, like half of the movie takes place in Cuba. Um, like a third of the movie is like just a flashback of Vito's life, like yeah, like the father and the son like intercalating the stories. I found it really beautiful. Um, I probably prefer the first movie to the second movie, and the third movie I haven't watched in a long time. I remember not liking it, and so I don't feel like, oh shit, there's a big freaking bug in my room now. I hope it goes away. Oh man, you guys see that? The hell even is this thing? All right, please fly away. Please just go. No, don't come at me, please. Please don't do. Why are you doing this? Come on. Ah! Ah! I don't want to kill him. I'm like the Joker, and that's Batman. I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you? You complete me. I'm really good at Joker impressions, by the way. Uh, all right, all right. I hope it doesn't disturb me. There's a lot of bugs this time of year. Uh, all right. So The Godfather 2 wins this round. I think it's the better movie. I love Hitchcock, but just it's so beautiful. The Godfather Part 2, like the scene with Vito in the. By the way, I just cut my hand a little. The scene with Vito, young Vito, and like seeing the Statue of Liberty from his room is just it's just great, and it just is like I think it says New York, 1920, 20 something. Yeah, really beautiful movie. Now, Hereditary versus The Deer Hunter. Wow, these are both movies I haven't seen in like 3, 4 years. Hereditary is really, I remember being really like making me feel physical emotions like fear. Like I never been so scared and so creeped um, while watching a movie as I did Hereditary. Is like such a powerful experience. And the Deer Hunter, I remember just the Deer Hunter was one of like the of these movies like that are on this list is one of the first ones I watched when I decided to like start rating movies, which was really inspired by Roger Ebert's reviews. And I remember I think Roger Ebert is like is one of is on his list of like the great movies, his famous great movies list. Um, and that's like at that time I was just like watch I would just like watch whatever Roger Ebert said was good, and I was like, yeah, it's great. I remember even when I felt like it wasn't so good. Um, I just like I was afraid of giving it anything less than 5 stars because I'm like, oh yeah, Roger Ebert knows more than me. So a lot of these movies, I think The Deer Hunter, if I watched again, I wouldn't like it so much, to be honest. But it's kind of sad. Um, Now Hereditary, I really enjoyed it, but I have to say, even that I watched it just once, just the once. But I'd have to say, like, even when I first watched it, like the ending, I didn't like the ending, right? It was like it was surprising. It was confusing, and it was all like it wasn't bad, but I remember it wasn't as good as the rest of the movie. So I think these clearly both these movies will be kicked out when they're put against Godfather 2. Damn. Um, the Deer Hunter, I don't think would like it so much now. Hereditary, I probably would. So I'm gonna give 1 point to Hereditary. Yay! Sorry, Deer Hunter's out. Now, Through a Glass Darkly, directed by Ingmar Bergman, versus This Is England, directed by Shane Meadows, I think is his name. Um, Again, um, Wild Strawberries, the Ingmar Bergman movie, used to be one of my favorite movies, as did Fanny and Alexander, and both of the movies I watched recently, and I did not enjoy them as much. I thought they were okay, but I felt like, yeah, I don't like this as much. I mean, he was like the first director that I really got into. I mean, not counting Christopher Nolan. He's like the first, like say, like artsy director, like one of the Criterion's guys that I really like got into his movies. And I still say his movies are very much well worth watching. But right now, they don't really gel with me as much. They have a lot of talking. It's like a theater play, right? There's a lot of talking, but I've learned to appreciate sort of like more silence in the movies and more like the actors' inputs. Uh, I feel like Bergman's movies like have no place for actors to really do a lot uh, beyond saying the lines, and they're good lines. His scripts are really good, but I mean, This Is England has a sort of grit and has this kind of independent feel to it that I really learned to enjoy. So I have to go with This Is England. It's a movie that everybody should watch. Um, it's about like the rise of fascism in the skinhead community in the Midlands, so like the middle of England. Yeah, and I watched it like last year, and it was really as good as I thought it would be. It's as good as I thought it would be. It was really great. Um, yeah. Now, L'Argent, which was the last movie directed by Robert Bresson. I think he was so old when he directed. He was like 85 years old, and it's still I loved it, because I this fighter who really has everything. He has like the beautiful wife. He has a brother who takes care of him, but despite that, he loses it all because he's an animal. He's an animal. He doesn't know how to control his emotions. Anyway, a really sad movie that now I feel like watching it. I have. Mm, yeah, it's just and the music too. What's it called? They have the in the I think the Sopranos finale or the semi finale. Yeah, the episode, the semi last episode from the Sopranos. They have like a scene where Tony Soprano's like sitting with Bobby and Silvio in like a cafe. Obviously, it's an Italian cafe because they're the mafia. And then like that song plays like in the speakers of the cafe. It's like and then Tony's like, oh, and it's like a really sweet and kind of childish movie of like these fucking psychotic mobsters, and Bobby. Bobby's not a psychotic mobster. Bobby's a nice guy. I love Bobby. He didn't deserve. Anyway, I'm not gonna spoil The Sopranos. What happens to Bobby? Oh, is he gonna survive? Is he gonna live? He obviously everybody dies in The Sopranos. I think people know that. Sorry, but let's go. Raging Bull. The music's so good. It's something like the Chariot, Caro. It's something in Italian. Whatever. I don't speak Italian. Lost Highway versus Cache. Okay, these movies have a lot in common. They both feature like uh, themes of like recording your life and not want to be recorded, which is like wow, yeah. I never noticed this movie has so much in common, but they're completely different too. Like Cache is like a release directed by Michael Haneke. Is like by far his best movie, at least in my opinion. I like The Right Ribbon, but Cache is just so good. And also Amour, which is in this list somewhere. Man, it's a really rewatchable, kind of like cold, um, philosophical examination of the high. How do you say? High income, so rich French people. Um, yeah, but Lost Highway is such a crazy, fucked up movie. That's really weird. Um, I was thinking if Lost Highway is gonna be one of my favorite movies, and I think it just has to win over Cache. Cache is really good, but Lost Highway, I think it probably is my favorite David Lynch movie. I heard a lot of bad things about it. I heard of like Siskel and Ebert sort of. I think they both like gave thumbs down, two thumbs down, to this movie, which is they probably said, oh, it doesn't make any sense. It's just boring and really slow. And I was just so like I was so in this movie when I was watching it. I was surprised. I expected not to like it so much, but it was really good, and I found it also really funny, like the tailgating scene, where like the mobsters are driving, and then the guy just like is driving too. There, he's tailgating him, so he's driving way too close. So the mobster just beat this guy up, and the actor, I wish I know his name. I think he is in The Sopranos too. He just like never tailgate anyone in your life. He was like, it's so funny. I love it. I have to go with Lost Highway, and also it's a really scary movie too. Um, Man, I feel like watching it tonight. It's so good. Is the bug still there? Yeah, the bug's there, but he's just chilling. All right, let's just let him chill. I don't want to kill anyone. Now, Get Out versus Scarface. Scarface is really like a classic. I love like the vibe of like Florida and these palm trees, and they're just driving in the car. Obviously, say hello to my little friend and freaking what's the actor that plays Salieri in Amadeus? What's his name? Um, yeah, I'm gonna say Salieri. No, Robert. What's his name? F. Murray Abraham. F. Murray Abraham being like thrown out of the helicopter, like the beginning of the movie. Um, but Get Out. I was watching some scenes like from this movie on YouTube the other day, and they're so good. They're so good. Get Out is a really like I remember hearing like a lot of when the movie came out, people was like, all right, this movie is not really so good. It's just about like it's in the Academy because of racial politics or whatever. And I disagree. I think Get Out deserves all the praise it got. Jordan Peele has done a really good job, and I think it's the only movie of his which I watched. I wanted to watch Us the other day, but I didn't. I have to go with Get Out. I mean, I do think it's like a modern masterpiece. And it's also really funny, obviously, because Jordan Peele wrote it. I have to give 1 point to Get Out. Yeah. Now we've done the first 8 rounds, right? How many rounds are there? Man, there's gonna be a lot of rounds. I think there's gonna be 127 rounds. I think I might have to go to speak a little faster. There's a lot of movies here. Or maybe I'm gonna make this like a two-parter. Gonna start it. Gonna finish it some other day. Let me just check out the audio. See if everything's in order. Just watching my own video. Yeah, yeah, everything seems to be in order. Uh, okay. Next up, Rear Window versus Whiplash. It's got to be Rear Window. Sorry. Whiplash is so good. Whiplash is so good and so rewatchable, but Rear Window is just, it makes you feel things. I don't really get scared easily from a movie from like the 1950s, but it's just really creepy, and I love the themes of like curiosity and like how people are like interested in others' lives that aren't their own. Whiplash is beautiful. Whiplash is a beautiful movie that I needed to watch like 3 4 times before I said, all right, this is like a 5-star movie. Before I'd given it 4 stars out of 5, because like, all right, this is the director's first movie, and I can see that it's got some amateur stuff. I'm the first one to say that, but the script is so good, and like the message is really interesting message about pushing people beyond what's expected of them. I probably wouldn't do it the way Fletcher did it in this movie. I wouldn't throw a chair at someone. I wouldn't just bully my students. But the because he did it, because the fact that he did it just like to push people further, and like in the beginning of like the third part, when he's like, people don't really understand why I'm at Schaefer's, right? It was to push people, right? There's no the single most dangerous word in the words in the English language are good job, right? Because if you say good job to someone, his philosophy was be, yeah, people, so they won't go beyond, they won't be great. I personally disagree with that. I think people need like to be complimented to really want um, to go further. I think by saying, if somebody under you does something good, you have to say good job, and it's gonna make them want to do it more. That's my philosophy. But anyway, Rashomon versus Eyes Wide Shut. All right, again, both movies directed by like masters, directed by some of the best directors ever. Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon and Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. I I don't think Eyes Wide Shut gets like the praise it deserves. It does have like some weird stuff in it, like some, not, I don't mean like the mask thing. I mean like there's some acting that's not so good. There's like a feeling that there's something wrong. I get that a little, but uh, it's just really it's just really fascinating, and I like that people believe Kubrick was killed by the Hollywood elite because of this movie. Obviously, he wasn't, but it's an interesting idea. You know, like it makes the movie live on, um, even though it's like more than 20 years old. You know, the topic of Hollywood elites is still like rampant today. Um, and it's kind of mixed with with like anti-Semitism, but which sucks. But let's not get into that. Now Rashomon, has a really interesting message about truth and how you can never really get the truth. I like to read about history a lot, and when you read about history, there's obviously conflicting evidence. There's people who say, "Oh, he said this." No, 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 he said that. And at the end, you don't really know. Oh, it's probably this, but we're not really sure. Rashomon uh, tells this. He like shows us this idea in really like a new way. Um, It's like tell the same story from four different points of view, and they're all drastically different. I just, I don't believe in objective truth. I think it's all subjective. Everything's subjective, man. But I really believe it is, and Rashomon displays that beautifully. So I'm gonna go with Rashomon, even though Eyes Wide Shut is really really good. All right, The Night of the Hunter versus The Wizard of Oz. Two old ass movies um, about children. I guess Dorothy is like a child, right? I mean, I know the actress was like super. What's her name? I mean, Dorothy is the character. I forgot her name in real life. Judy something. It's Judy something. Um, Judy Garland. But I really love The Night of the Hunter. I really like Robert Mitchum. He's so creepy in this movie. And like it's a movie from the 1950s about a serial killer who marries innocent women and then kills them. And like her son was like, "This guy's gonna kill you," and she's like, "No, of course he won't." And then of course he gets killed. Life is really not so fair sometimes. Um, the Wizard of Oz, though, it's just I think it's a movie for like all ages, and I find it magical. Even though I saw it when I was like a teenager, so like it's a movie for children. Everybody had seen it. I was like, oh, I never seen this movie, but I should have. It would have been a better childhood if I had seen The Wizard of Oz. It's really colorful, and it's really beautiful. And I think it's David Lynch's uh, favorite movie. I have to give it to The Wizard of Oz. It's amazing. It's so good. All right, Fargo versus There Will Be Blood. What would be interesting if we did No Country for Old Men versus There Be Blood. Although I think I'd pick There Will Be Blood. Um, two. Um, I'm trying to find something between. Well, two movies protagonized by really unlikable people, right? I mean, Fargo. It's Jerry Lundegaard, who's just he's like a guy that puts himself down. He's like a person that you think, oh, you feel so sorry for him, and then you're like, wait, no, this guy is just he's a monster. He's like a monster. He kidnaps his own. He has his own wife kidnapped in like a scene that's really funny. Uh, it's like a dark comedy Fargo, but it's sometimes it's too much. Now There Be Blood is like probably a perfect movie. It's probably a perfect movie, right? It's really I feel like everything in it has been done carefully, and still like the actors are have have like some place to shine, because with when you get a director like Stanley Kubrick, sure, his scripts are great, but the actors don't really get a chance to to take over the movie. Like there's some exceptions, like yeah, of course, actors improvise. Jack Nicholson obviously improvised the "Here's Johnny" line, and I think in Clockwork Orange too, the "Singing in the Rain" it wasn't originally in the script. By the way, there was no script in the movie. There it wasn't in the books, but I mean, um, but it's really great when you have a director like Paul Thomas Anderson who like, dude, the movie is yours, okay? The movie's yours, and it's about this, like, basically like how do you say, like it's also like an elite movie. It's about like an oil uh, baron who abandons his son. It's just there's no way to like this guy. Daniel Plainville is the character played by Daniel Day Lewis, uh, but it's also really well shot. Yeah, somebody send me hearts. I don't know who. Who the fuck is watching this? All right, let's. I think I'm gonna give it to There Be Blood. It's just, it's just such a like a modern classic, right? It feels really like a classic movie, even though it's really not so old. I'd say the same thing about other Paul Thomas Anderson movies. His last movie, Pizza, was great, which is here, by the way. We're gonna get into. Now, The Godfather Part One versus Good Time. Man, man, this is a hard one. The Godfather. I mean, obviously, it's got to be The Godfather, right? I mean, it's just so good. But Good Time just speaks to me. I love that it feels like a really new movie. The Safdie brothers kind of like get that feeling through, which from every movie they make, at least the ones I watched, it feels like it belongs in the 21st century. Like you get a movie, like I said, Licorice Pizza. All right, it's great, but it doesn't. It's like it feels like it belongs in the past. It feels like it could have been done like a little while ago. The Safdies are directors that I'd say when I watch the movie, I'm like, holy shit, I'm like living in I'm like living in like an age that is fun and I have a good time. I don't know if I'm getting through. Um, yeah, I have to go with good time. It's just such a such a fucked up journey, and the main character Connie is just such an asshole. He's a psychopath. Um, but it's a really interesting movie. Yeah, maybe my favorite movie of like the decade, or maybe not. Let's see. No, it's probably not. But I love it. It's great. Now, Spirited Away versus Amarcord. Two really sweet movies in weird ways. One of them does have like a scene of boys masturbating in a car together, which is Amarcord. It's not Spirited Away. Um, so there's like some adult themes, and also there's like a scene where an underage boy is just making out with the fat Italian woman's titties. So it's maybe not. Maybe I was wrong when I say it's like a childhood movie, but it does have like the air. It's a movie about Federico Fellini's childhood, and it's great. It's told in these like little vignettes from like which are some of them I like feel very real. Some of them feel like it's an imagination. Like every time I think of like Italian fascism, I think of the scene in this movie where the dad is forced to drink castor oil, which was something that was actually done in fascist Italy. So maybe fascism is not so good? Question mark. Man, there's a lot of movies here. But Spirited Away, I mean, there's nothing I can say about this movie that hasn't been said before. It's I love how even though it's a kids movie, the clearly it's a movie that people like the people making it really thought about. They didn't think like, oh, it's a kids movie, so forget it. No, it's clearly they wanted to do a masterpiece, and they did it. And it does have like a lot of adult themes. Like I thought it was gonna be this like only just like this little sweet like children's film, like something like Pixar. But no, it actually deals a lot with death and control, and all these bad things. Um, but yeah, it has to be Spirited Away. Spirited Away is just so good. Yeah. Now, oh, another Fellini movie, La Strada versus The Dark Knight. Now, La Strada is a movie I watched once, like 4 years ago. No, probably like 5 years ago. So I don't remember a lot about it. I do remember it's about a girl who is sold by her family for, I think, because they were starving, which all right. and and she like joins a circus, and it's like a really sad Italian movie. Um, but The Dark Knight is just every scene is on point. Every scene in that movie is memorable, and I love how like the movie like the you think the movie is about to end, like after the second act, and then it just goes on for another hour. If it would have been today, they probably would have done like two separate movies. But yeah, I like how like the second half is just it just goes on, it just goes on. It's amazing. I love it. Let's go to the Dark Knight. All right, gotta get some water in my system. All right, is there water? Oh, sorry. Sorry for that sound. I'm gonna get some more water later. Now Hot Fuzz versus Goodfellas. These are both movies that I think if I watched today, I wouldn't like it as much as I did back then. Um, Goodfellas because I think it's a very New York movie, and I've never been to York. In fact, I've never been to the United States. I'm in Germany right now. I'm from Brazil, by the way. I'm studying. Hot Fuzz because maybe because it's just like a comedy, and when I think it's like a really funny comedy, but it's probably not worth like 5 stars. But I mean, Goodfellas is just like like I said about the Dark Knight. Like every scene is on point. Every scene is like you can just watch on YouTube, and it's like you can just watch them over and over again. Um, Really great movie that doesn't have a lot of like emotion. It's just about this psychopath that turned on his friends. Hot Fuzz. Maybe I'm being unfair to Hot Fuzz, but I need to rewatch them. Now the Handmaiden versus La Haine. The Handmaiden versus the French movie La Haine. La Haine is probably my favorite French movie. Uh, it's just about three guys hanging out. I thought it was gonna be like this action-packed thing, and like it's really not. The second half is just them chilling through Paris, and there's like a scene where like there's two guys, and it's like, "Did you fart?" It's like, "Dude, of course you farted. Don't even like what? No, I didn't fart." It's like, and it's surprisingly funny for like the heavy theme that it has, which is about like poverty and like social alienation of the impoverished in Paris, the suburbs of Paris. But The Handmaiden is such a well-made masterpiece, and it has so many twists and turns. I did not know this. I didn't even know it was going to be like a romantic movie. I thought it was just gonna be like, all right, this little intrigue thing. The poster really doesn't give away the romance, and I love that. I wasn't expecting this when I watched the movie. It's a really passionate movie, and I feel like director Park Chan Wook's films are always passionate, except maybe Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. But yeah, The Handmaiden's gotta win. Now, Memories of Murder versus Wild Strawberries. These are both movies that at one time I considered them one of my favorites, and both of them I rewatched them and I was like, maybe not. So they're both gonna lose to The Handmaiden. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, Memories of Murder is an incredibly intelligent movie, though. Wild Strawberries it does have like some sweet moments. It has some interesting things to say about getting older and love and about paternity and like how the problems of the what's that line? The sins of the father shall be met upon the son. It's about that. I have a movie in this channel about it. I have a video on this channel about it, which I guess a video is a movie. Memories of Murder, even though it didn't really gel with me the last time I watched it, it's also like incredibly intelligent. I love how the movie just tricks you. The movie makes you think a certain way just by the way it shows it, just by the shot, just by the music it uses, and it paints you an idea. It like manipulates you, and I love it. I love it. It was also a Korean movie directed by Bong Joon-ho, director Bong Joon-ho, more famous for his movie Parasite. But I think even though Parasite's great, I think I probably prefer Memories of Murder. It's so good. And when they say like Park Chan Wook is like today's Alfred Hitchcock, they have a point. They have a point. Dude, there's so many movies. How long is this live, by the way? It's already 40 minutes. What the hell? Um, what the hell? Okay, let's do this faster. All right, speed round. Not really, but let's see. Now, Dog Day Afternoon versus Licorice Pizza. Both movies that take place in the 70s, I guess. But Dog Day Afternoon is great. I love the character played by Fredo. I'm sorry. What's his movie? What's his name? He's Italian. Italian Fredo. Um, I love it, and I love Al Pacino in this movie. He's really like charismatic. He doesn't even try to be charismatic, but it's like people just love him in this movie, even though he's like a bank robber. Um, and obviously everything goes wrong in the robbery. It's actually based on a real robbery, I think. Licorice Pizza though, it's so swell. It's just so swell and full of joy. I have to go with Licorice Pizza. I wish it got more like more of an audience. A lot of people were against it. They said it was they're like racist, anti-Asian undertones. The way I understood it, the joke was not about the Asian characters. It was about the person imitating the Asian characters. Because there's a guy who's like, "Oh, Kamiko, do you think a restaurant is a good idea?" So it's like clearly they're not making fun of Asian people in the movie. I mean, when I say it, it does sound that way, but they're just making fun of this guy who thinks his wives can understand it when he speaks like that. And another problem was like the age difference because it's about a 15-year-old guy who falls in love with a 25-year-old woman, which I mean, I mean, yeah, I feel like yeah, picture it the other way around, which you could, but also I can only talk about me personally. And when I was like 16 or 17, I did fall in love with like a much older girl. She was like 26 or something. Um, so really, I mean, I think every guy has like sort of every guy like understands that, and I think women too. I think women understand. I think it's a little PC, a little too PC when people say, "Oh, that's problematic." I think it should be between them, and if it's mutual and consensual, then it's none of our business. But it's a movie. Yeah, No Country for Old Men versus Casino. Man, No Country for Old Men is a movie that everyone loves. It's a movie that just no one has a problem with. Uh, I do think it's kind of cold. It's really rewatchable. But I do think it's really cold, and a little too cynical too. It was written that it's based on a book written by Cormac McCarthy, who wrote also Blood Meridian. So you can't and The Road. So you can't expect like a lot of happiness from this author, but it's not a really hopeful movie. I guess Casino is also not hopeful. It's like Casino's really just Goodfellas, but with more color and taking place in Las Vegas. But I think I prefer Casino over Goodfellas, to be honest. Um, but No Country for Old Men, both desert movies too, I guess. Hmm. I'd have to go with No Country for Old Men. It's so much more iconic and memorable. Casino's great, but like in the when you talk about Scorsese movies, is like one of the last ones that come to mind, right? Scorsese had like 50 movies, and Casino's great, but I guess it's not on par with some of his other movies. I think I'm the only person in the world who prefers Casino to Goodfellas, but I like both of them. All right, now Zodiac versus Manchester by the Sea. Zodiac is really fascinating to me because it's a really it's like a movie based on actual documents. So there's very little in the movie that like tries tries to be cinematic. It's just like an investigation. It's basically just a non-fiction movie, right? Obviously, there's always fictional elements, um, but I think it's really fascinating how the movie is just very tries to be very objective about what happened, and sort of like doesn't have a side. Who's the Zodiac killer? It's really up to you. Uh, Manchester by the Sea, written and directed by Kenneth Lonergan, who's most famous for writing theater plays. It's great. It's great, and it's really heartbreaking. I was expecting sort of like what's the word? Like not a, yeah, I guess melodramatic type of thing, but it's really the way it portrays grief and sadness is really realistic. There's like 100 video essays about how it portrays it realistically. Um, it's really good. It's a good movie, and I like it, and I think I prefer it over Zodiac. Um, I do like David Fincher, who directed Zodiac. I do like it, but I think the best thing he did was The Social Network, and it's like, but like all of his movies feel like David Fincher. It's always dark. It's always like with a little techno music. I feel like he should like try a little different. And there's a lot of movies by him in this list. Uh, Gone Girl's in this list. Um, Fight Club's not, because I don't think Fight Club's such a great movie. I'm sorry. I'm kind of tired of watching it. I'd watched it too many times. Um, yeah, I like him, but it's like I don't really like his style. I just think he really picks great scripts and does a good job adapting it to the screen. But he's not one of my favorite directors. Actually, I'm kind of a little against him. Now, Rebecca versus Chinatown, two classic American stories. Uh, Chinatown, you know, everybody knows Forget It Jake is Chinatown. It's a really, it's from from 1973, I think, or 74, probably 74. And it's like it's a noir. When I heard it's like a noir movie from the 1970s, I'm like, wasn't there enough noir? Like, wasn't it just like enough in the 1940s, whereas like people sort of like forgot it? And it's like, all right, it's done. Let's forget about it. And then I watched it, and there's not a lot about it that could not have been done in the 1940s. There's nothing like revolutionary about it, but it's just such a good script. It's so good, and Jack Nicholson's so good in it. Um, yeah, um, and Rebecca's like Hitchcock's sort of like underrated movie. I don't like that word. I use that word a lot, and I don't like using that word a lot. But Rebecca is underrated. I'd heard absolutely nothing about it before watching it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, my dad wants to watch a Hitchcock movie with me, so let's just put one that I haven't watched." And we both hadn't watched it, and we both thought it was great, amazing. And yeah, I just really and I guess there are two like sort of detective stories, more or less, or like thrillers, sort of like noir style thrillers. But Rebecca, I just think it's much better. Yeah, I have to say Rebecca. Yeah, and it's really full of twists and turns. It's definitely not what I expected it to be, which I like being surprised. Now, oh man, this will be hard. Taste of Cherry versus Uncle Boon Me, who can recall his past lives. Now, both these movies are very slow, and both these movies are very well loved too. And I think they both won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. So yeah, they're really like Cannes style movies. They both like have this Criterion artsy feel. I love Taste of Cherry. I think it's one of the most profound movies I've ever seen. I did a presentation about it in my German class, um, and the guys really liked the presentation. I I think when any person is like down, or I know it's like a taboo, but thinking about committing suicide, this movie is about that. but it's really uplifting too. It's really it I think people who watched it and they're going through something, I think they're gonna walk out of it feeling better. At least I hope so. There's a speech in the middle, like or more towards the end of the movie, by a man from by an Azeri man, so a man who speaks Azerbaijan. You can tell him that his accent is not Persian, and and it's just about how he was gonna go commit suicide. He had money problems with he had problems with his wife, so he just got a rope and drove and put the rope around like the tree branch, and he was just gonna commit suicide, and then he felt something in his hands, and it was mulberries, right? And so he ate one mulberry, and he ate another mulberry, and he ate another mulberry, and when he noticed the sun was rising, and he saw like the greenery, and then he saw the children going to the school and asking him to shake down the tree for the mulberries, and it's just a really powerful scene. And then the main character who wants to kill himself, he says, "All right, you ate mulberries, and then you had no problems. Everything was fine." It's like, no, of course not. That wasn't it. But I changed my outlook. Um, Sardonicast, which is a really good film podcast, probably the best film podcast, has an episode about Taste of Cherry, and Adam Johnston, or more known as your movie sucks.org. He has a really good take in the movie, how it's like about depression, and it's like the way it portrays depression is like they explicit say depression is like a lens, and you have to take these lens off, right? You don't have to change everything about your life, but you have to change your outlook. I find it really beautiful. But Uncle Bunmi wins because it's so good. I can't really explain why it's so good or why I love it so much, but it just speaks to me. I love the way nature is portrayed in this movie. And it's like a weird fantasy film from Thailand that I thought I wouldn't really enjoy, and it's I loved it. I loved it to bits. I loved it. Um, I love the way its message about death and accepting death. Um, I guess these movies have a lot in common now that I think of it. Taste of Sherry, Uncle Boomy, and both very optimistic too. Uncle Boomy is just a weird fantasy film that I love so much. Now, Citizen Kane versus Burning. Now, if you, everybody knows Citizen Kane, Orson Welles, 1941, often stated as the greatest movie of all time, very confidently stated so. Uh, and hey, maybe it is, but It's not. Uh, it's not for me. I mean, it's not the greatest movie for me. I do like it. I find it really, really fun. Which, when you hear it's like, oh, it's the greatest movie of all time, you probably think, oh, it's gonna be really slow and boring. But it's surprisingly really fun, and I think it's for everyone. It's like really, not a blockbuster. What's the word I'm looking for? Really a crowd pleaser, and at times really funny too, but also really tragic. Burning is an 2018 Korean movie about burning greenhouses, and I think it's better than Citizen Kane. I love the way that in this movie, like things aren't explicit. There's a lot of things that are sort of like mentioned, and they get into your head, and you're like, wait, does that mean? And you're not really sure. I think this is the way every thriller should be. So I'm gonna go with Burning. It's just for me personally, it just what's the word? It hits a chord. Is that the thing? Hits a spot, hits a chord. Anyway, English. Blue Velvet versus Parasite. Now I will say that Parasite, I I watched it once. I was astounded. I thought it was so good. I watched it twice. I thought it was amazing. I watched it three times. I thought it was great, but I felt like I three times a little too much. Right? It did get a lot of praise. It does deserve the praise. It's probably the best movie of 2019. I'm glad it won the Oscar. But Blue Velvet. I mean, I just have a soft spot for David Lynch. His Blue Velvet's really, it starts off as like this beautiful, suburbia style thing, and at the end it's just like so. It's about like rape, and it's about sexual perversion. It's about wanting to be raped. It's a really fucked up movie. It's maybe not. It's like basically the Wizard of Oz. I'm not the first person to say that. It's basically the Wizard of Oz for adults. The main character Jeffrey's sort of like Dorothy. He just goes and he thinks he's gonna be like a cool adventure, but it's just horrible, and he shouldn't have got involved with it. But I think I'm gonna go with Blue Velvet. I don't think even if I watched it again, I probably think, yeah, this movie deserves to be watched again, which is not how I felt about Parasite. I felt like, all right, I watched it twice and that was enough, even though it's a really great movie. Now, Ratatouille versus Close Up. Close Up, another movie by Abbas Kiarostami, who also directed Taste of Cherry, and more famously, I think he's got my favorite more favorite famous movies. Certified Copy is really famous. Uh, now, Ratatouille is is great, but I can't stop having this feeling that it feels like it's a product. It's not because it's like a big budget movie. It's just I don't know. I feel like Pixar movies, even if they're great, they feel like products. They feel like they're made by committee, even if it's an interesting idea like Ratatouille, and just it's a feeling that it's always in the back of my mind, even when I like swell up listening to watching the scene where it go taste the Ratatouille. It's so good, but close up in comparison, it feels much more honest. I'd have to say. Um, but also, Ratatouille is really fun. Everyone can watch it. Close up's not for everybody. Um, So, all right, let's go Ratatouille. I think that the two are very close, but let's go with Ratatouille. Now, The Lion King versus Shaun of the Dead. The Lion King is great. I hadn't watched it as a kid. I heard so much about it, and I like it was when I that game Never Have I Ever. It's like always when it was my turn, like I never watched The Lion King, so everyone would raise their hand, obviously, because everyone had watched them. But I watched it recently, and it was just as good as I had heard. But Shaun of the Dead is so freaking funny. It's so freaking funny, and it does have a heart. I love the character who's like plays the friend, like the Sean's ex girlfriend's best friend, who clearly just wants to fuck his ex girlfriend, but he's not like courageous enough to say it. It's like I don't remember his character's name. It's probably Jim, I think, but it's just a really interesting character that's also really funny. I feel like watching Shaun of the Dead right now, so I'm gonna give it to Shaun of the Dead. Yay! Now, City Lights versus Old Boy. All right, City Lights is the Charlie Chaplin classic. I found it really funny, even though it's from the 30s, and really intelligent. And I love how it's so like fast. It's not like a slow movie. It just goes from one place to another, and it's about a guy who drinks and then forgets he met Charlie Chaplin, and Charlie Chaplin's got to remind him how they met. But Old Boy is just a Korean masterpiece, the best Korean movie out there, in my opinion. So good. and really well thought out. I don't know how the director like thought of this movie. I know it's adapted from the manga, but for at least from what I heard, I haven't read the manga. From what I heard, uh, the best things in the movie are like weren't in the mangas. They were just adapted by the writer director Park Chan Wook. So I have to go with Old Boy in this one. Even though I knew the twist, which you shouldn't, I wish I didn't know the twist. But even though I knew the twist, I it didn't. It there was so many more twists too. Like in the twist, in the movie, like everyone's heard of this one twist, but like you don't know the backstory, and the backstory is really the interesting part. Um, I'm not gonna give too much, but it's an incredible movie that I love. Now, Paris, Texas versus Frenzy. All right, Frenzy is a Hitchcock movie that doesn't get enough love in my opinion. It's really funny, uh, and it's just compared to other Hitchcock movies, it has a very sexual atmosphere that it makes it so much more interesting. Um, I guess I heard of things like Marnie. His movie Marnie are really also have like explicit sex scenes. But it's very interesting seeing Hitchcock do like mixing this like sexual tension with this uh, like thriller horror style tension. But Paris, Texas is such a sweet movie too. Um, it's about America, and but it's clearly been it's clearly a vision of somebody who's not American, which I find interesting. Uh, Once Upon a Time in America is also like that. It was done by an Italian, Sergio Leone. This one's done by Jim Wenders, who's a German. Wim Wenders, by the way, rather. And it's just I feel it's really good. I really like it. I really like it, and I feel like it's just a cute story about a man who does wrong, and then he forgets and he tries to make up for it. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Probably the best movie of 1984, actually. Now, Fitzcarraldo versus Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back, or just The Empire Strikes Back. It's better to say just The Empire Strikes Back, I guess. Um, Two movies from the 80s. Um, Fitzcarraldo is such a weird fucking movie. It's about a guy who wants to build an opera in the middle of the Amazon forest, and but the whole movie is just like you think is gonna get to the opera, but it doesn't. It gets the main characters get stuck when they can't cross a river, so they pull their boat up a mountain to get to the other side of the river, and people die. And the making of this movie was also like a nightmare. There's a documentary which I want to watch about the making of this movie. Uh, but The Empire Strikes Back is so well done, and it has so much wisdom, especially with Yoda. But not only that, and it's also really dark. The main character gets his hand cut off, right? Luke Skywalker gets his hand cut off, and he gets another hand, of course. Uh, but it's really dark, and I like that, and I like that also the entire first act of the movie takes place in like an ice planet, and it has nothing to do with the rest of the story. I like it. So I'm gonna go with The Empire Strikes Back. It's a great movie. Um, yeah, I know it's not like highbrow as not as highbrow as some other movies here, but it's great. Now, The Wolf of Wall Street versus Don't Look Now. The Wolf of Wall Street. I was rewatching some YouTube scenes, and I thought this movie is really excessive. This movie has it's just about two. It's 3 hours long of just people having sex and doing drugs, uh, which is good, which is the best part of life, if you ask me. Uh, but it's also I think if I watch it today, I'll be a little disgusted. When I watch it, I was like a young kid who never really saw anything like that. But I mean, Don't Look Now is just such a horror masterpiece that just it's heartbreaking, and it's also it's about grief too. It's about this couple who loses their child, and then they go to Italy, and they have visions of like their dead child. Is so fucked up. Uh, but I think it deserves more praise than The Wolf of Wall Street, to be honest. Again, both movies that I haven't seen in a long time. Now, The Seventh Seal versus The Devils. The Seventh Seal is a movie that everyone, when I say it, people probably think, "Oh, I never heard that movie." But everyone's seen like that picture of the guy playing chess with death. Oops, that's a really, that's a really fantastic image. It's the first Ingmar Bergman movie that I watch. Outside of that, I don't remember a lot except the ending, which is which is really dark and kind of fucked up. The Devils is a movie that five people watched, and including me and Mark Kermode. And Mark Kermode said it was one of his favorite movies, and I'm like, okay, I that sounds interesting, and it just blew me away. This movie, it's a 1971 movie that I think was just done in the 60s, but they had so much problem like releasing it because of the amount of violence and sex. I mean, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but a character gets burned alive in the movie, and it's like it's not like in the background. It's like directly, it's like in your face. Uh, and it's about this nun who just falls in love with this kind of Chad. It's basically Chad. I guess this is a way to describe the character. And she just one time she like wants to confess, and she's like she confesses to a priest, and it's like the priest says, "What do you want?" And she's like, "Come here, cock." And it's so funny, and she just like laughs maniacally, and it's a movie that takes place in the Middle Ages, so I guess people weren't so open-minded about nuns liking cock. I guess today that people still don't like that. Anyway, a really subversive movie that just shows like the worst part of human nature, and and like the Catholic Church, and I love it. It's about corruption. It's about war. I love it. I think it deserves a lot more fame than it has. I wish I heard more people talking about it. All right, so we're halfway through the first round. Oh my God, there's so many rounds. We're halfway through the first round, I guess. If my yeah, we are. And how many? How much time has it been? It's been already almost an hour and a half. What the fuck? All right, maybe I'm just gonna do round one for today, but I'm gonna finish it because I feel like talking about movies. But before, I gotta get some more water. I'll be right back. All right. Yo, 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 yo. Let me just check the audio before we begin, before we go on. I hope everything's fine. I hope so. Yeah, it sounds good. All right. Um, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. Now, part two of round one. Oh man, there's so many movies. Why did I put so many movies here? I'll try to make this one a little bit quicker because it really didn't feel like an hour and a half or an hour and 10 or whatever it was. I guess and I rambled a lot. At least I have the feeling. But it's better than just doing nothing. Uh, or better than just doing this in my head. I guess I should post more things on YouTube. I mean, for the amount of subscribers I have, I really should be doing some more interesting shit. Um, 395 subscribers. I think I lost one, but most of them are just like they subscribe after I did it like a remix of a Pink Floyd song in this channel, but then I deleted the song because I felt like I didn't deserve the 100,000 views that the song had. Uh, but anyway, now Gone Girl versus Dunkirk, two recent movies. And also two very dark movies. I rewatched like parts of Dunkirk, and it's just, oh no, the bug is back. Is he? Oh no, there's more bugs. Maybe I should just close my window, even though it's so freaking hot. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Oh shit. But the bug that was bothering me is like he's just chilling there. He's not gonna. I think he's gonna leave me alone, and I'm gonna leave him alone. You know, that's how animals should act, I guess. Now, uh, Gone Girl, I was really surprised by the twist in the middle of the movie, and also the twist at the ending of the movie. But I think like the message, as good as the movie is, the message of the movie is like it's like sort of like a metaphor for marriage. The whole movie, at least in my interpretation, and David Fincher does it in a way that it's ultra realistic. So I think that sort of clashes the sort of like trying to do something extremely realistic and doing something that's like also a metaphor. So things shouldn't be taken realistically, right? It should be it's like more of like an exploitative sort of non-real thing. But Dunkirk, I really like Dunkirk. I wish it had a little more gore because it's a movie about war and people die in war and there's blood and there's like not a drop of blood in the movie. However, uh, he does the director Christopher Nolan does do a good job in showing the sort of like the fear and tension of war that he does really well. But I never been in war, thank God. But it's probably tense. Now, the Batman versus Seven Samurai from Akira Kurosawa. This one might be controversial, but I think I'm going with Batman. I loved it so much. I watched it like 3 times. I was expecting to sort of like it, but it's like all right. It's like sort of a haven't we done enough Batman? And the answer is yes. And I did find a problem that this movie like sort of has sort of ends with there's gonna be a next movie sort of like this, or at least it hints. I don't think that is needed. It could be a great movie, but I just think the movie stands as it stands like a single movie. It's a really great piece of detective work. I love the riddles in this movie. I love them, and I think they like this dark Riddler works extremely well, and sort of like when the Dark Knight. I don't know if I prefer the Dark Knight versus the Batman. Um, if like the Dark Knight and that time people were scared of like terrorism in the United States, this movie is more like how the people distrust politics and politicians, and they look to violent characters like the Batman. I found it really well put together and well orchestrated in the movie. Yeah, so I have to go with the Batman. I love Seven Samurai, um, but the Batman just speaks to me in a way that Seven Samurai doesn't really. It's like everything you thought it would be, Seven Samurai. Um, but it's not surprising. And the Batman for me, it was extremely surprising. Now, The Fly versus Inception. The Fly is the only David Cronenberg movie that I've seen, actually. And I really loved it. It does have like some corny 80s movie style things, but outside of that, it's really about this like tortured figure who becomes a fly. Now, Inception, I just I'll just have to go with Inception. Sorry, guys. I just oh man, my nose. I just have to go with Inception on this one because where's the yeah. I just have to go with Inception on this one because it's so even like years after it's been more than a decade since the movie came out, but people always say like in conversations that I have, oh, this is like Inception. So it's so um, still part of people's lives. Like it's also in the sort of like the minds of people forever. I think it's really hard to do that, but Christopher Nolan does that very well. He also did that with Interstellar. Whatever, whatever like notion of time. Um, People make a joke about like the way they understand time, and Interstellar is like the go-to reference for that. I like it. Now, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest versus Once Upon a Time dot 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 in Hollywood. This dot doesn't deserve to be here. I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. But I can't change it, and or can I? I should be able to change it. Come on. Hey, come on. Hey, forget about it. No. All right. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest just a movie carried by Jack Nicholson. He just does such a good job in that movie, but also the actor who plays the chief is also like, all right. I can't talk about this movie without spoiling the ending, but the ending's so good, and also Nurse Ratched is such a great villain. It's such like a realistic villain that I'm not even sure if she's evil, but she's just so unlikable, and I think everyone knows a person like Nurse Ratched in their lives. Most of the time, they're probably like a teacher. Now, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I just really love the sort of like realism of the not the realism of the movie, the rather like the feeling of joy that the movie brings. I think it's Tarantino's most joyful movie. Also, probably his least violent movie, and that's people had a lot of problem with that. They felt like, at least from what I heard, they had the feeling like, oh, this wasn't really a Tarantino movie. It didn't feel like a Tarantino movie. I mean, for me, it did, and it felt that way in the characters. I mean, I think the character is so good, especially Rick Dalton, such a sad figure, but also so funny. And I love Brad Pitt also in the movie, and Margot Robbie. She's just the feeling of innocence that, of course, got destroyed with the Manson murders. Man, this is a really hard one. I I'll go with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah, it feels, I guess, feels more genuine. I have to say, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it does feel like a million, $100 million movie, and I don't think it needed to be. I don't think it needed to be. I like Tarantino's more like low budget movies. Low budget. They cost $5, $10 million. That's a low budget, but I don't have it. All right. Now, being John Malkovich versus Pink Floyd, The Wall. Damn. Being John Malkovich is a really fascinating movie about like the mind of Charlie Kaufman, the writer. But Pink Floyd, The Wall, despite just being about like a privilege, I don't like that word, but a privileged rock star who like has nothing to complain about, but he just complains and does drugs. I understand that, but this movie defined my childhood. Like I watched it when I was like 8 or 9, which a child should not do. But I guess my parents just didn't really care. and it really spoke to me somehow. I don't know why. I guess I was kind of a fucked up kid, a messed up kid. I'm cursing too much, but I have to go with Pink Floyd The Wall. It's just I feel like it's part of me. There's images that like will be permanently just in my head. You know, not to spoil anything, but when everyone says razor, I picture a certain scene in this movie involving cutting your skin with a razor. Not like cutting your, well, dark, really dark movie. I wouldn't recommend it to 8-year-old kids, but yeah, I like it. Now, Apocalypse Now versus Mike Lee's Naked. Oh no, Mike Lee's Naked. Close your eyes. Ha ha ha. So funny, so fucking funny. Nobody really knows the movie Naked, I guess. I mean, I heard so little about it until like Sardonicus did an episode on it, and my teacher, my literature teacher, shout out to him. I can't believe I forgot his name. What's wrong with me? I need to sleep. Sorry, I drank a little too much yesterday. What's his name? Felipe Phelps. In Brazilian, we say Phelps. He doesn't look like a Phelps though. He doesn't look like at all. Maybe that's why I forgot it. Okay. Uh, and it's really both movies have really unlikable protagonists who. All right, he's a killer in Apocalypse Now, but I guess it's war, so it's different. In Naked, he's not a killer at all, but there is like a character, right, who I think kills people, or at least tries to hurt them. But I think I have to go with Apocalypse Now. It's just it's Marlon Brando. It appears for like 30 minutes, and he's like the face of the movie. He's like the best thing in it. Even though people say like complain that he's fat in the movie, I think that works for the movie's advantage, and I don't understand how people why people don't feel that way. They like complain about him being fat. I like that he was fat in the movie. Yep. Now, Taxi Driver versus Adaptation. Again, Adaptation, another Charlie Kaufman movie. One of my favorite scripts, I think, Adaptation, and really creative and new. Even though it's a movie about writing, and it's about a guy who doesn't have ideas for his movie, and the movie he's writing is literally the movie we're watching, which is like a really interesting concept. But Taxi Driver, the music in Taxi Driver makes it so good. Makes it so good. And Adaptation, I feel it has really conflicting elements. Like I love Nicolas Cage, and I love him in this movie, but it doesn't feel something also feels off, and I think there's a lot of things in this movie that do feel a little off. So I'm gonna go with Taxi Driver. It's I don't know. Adaptation is sort of like a personal favorite of mine, but it's just bad luck that it was put against Taxi Driver. One of the greatest American movies ever. Speaking of great American movies, Uncut Gems versus Sorcerer. I have to say that the last time I wanted to rewatch Uncut Gems, and I was rewatching, and it just felt a little off, and I turned it off halfway through. So I think this does give it automatically to Sorcerer. I think if I watched it Uncut Gems again, I wouldn't like as much as I did the first time, which is kind of sad, but it happens. Now, Saving Private Ryan versus After Hours. I don't think I would like most of the Steven Spielberg movies that I watched if I watched them today. There's really nothing about Steven Spielberg that is like innovative. There's nothing about it that's really artistic. They do feel like factory movies, and that bothers me a little. Uh, Again, Saving Private Ryan is also a movie that I've seen years and years ago, so I don't remember. Um, After Hours, I remember being really unexpectedly funny, and really darkly funny movie. But I have to give it to it. And it's also a movie that well known. Even in the Scorsese movies, a movie that like people sort of skip. Maybe if I rewatch it, I would agree with that or see why. But right now, I just I think it's great. I think it's great. Now, Reservoir Dogs versus Pickpocket. I'd have to go with Reservoir Dogs. It's such a creative script, Reservoir Dogs, and I love the way it plays with like time. Pickpocket's also great, but it does feel a little cold because it's Robert Bresson. You know, his actors never portray emotion. He thought of his actors more like models than actors. I'm not putting words in his mouth. Like he actually said that. How much do we have to go? All right, we're almost near the end of round one. It's been it's been an hour and a half actually now. But yeah. All right. Oh man, it's gonna be hard. Moonlight versus Vertigo. Vertigo is incredible. Vertigo is so good. The first time I watched it, I think I was like expecting it was number one in the Sight and Sound list of 2012. So I'm like, all right, I have to watch this movie. It's the best movie ever. And then like I was expecting it to be something which it was not, and I thought the twist was way over the top. But when I watched it again, I didn't feel that way at all. I felt like it was as great as people say it is. Moonlight is it's really sad because it's such a personal movie, and also deserves every praise it gets. It deserves all the praise. But yeah, it's sad that it's against Vertigo because Vertigo is, I think, the better movie. Um, Moonlight is really. I I mean, what I heard of it, it was that I heard it was like the gay black movie, and like, oh, that's why it won, and it's not. It's not that at all. It's just a really personal story that feels authentic and really beautiful. Really beautiful movie. Now, Yojimbo versus Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I really like Yojimbo. I have to say it's not on par with Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Few things are, but Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is just such a creative idea about a company that erases memories, and sort of like the director Michel Gondry just plays with that in such a creative way. With like the Jim Carrey's dreams, you know, Joel, I forgot his last name. Um, Man, what is his last name? It's not Joel Haver. I love Joel Haver. His movies are not on this list, unfortunately. I don't think they're great. I do think they're really good. I wouldn't call them great though. Um, I really like Pretend That You Love Me. But anyway, Eternal Sunshine is incredible, and it really speaks to me personally. I've been through like a breakup, and I've been like sort of thinking about this movie after the breakup. It wasn't like a bad breakup. It wasn't like as bad as the one in the movie, but still everyone who's had a relationship sort of, I guess, understands this movie on like a carnal level. And Yojimbo is like a really fun action movie, and that's sort of like all it is. I'm sorry. It is good though. It is great, I'd say. Eight and a Half versus Andrei Rublev. Two black and white movies from the 60s. Two movies that critics consider like, especially, Criterion had critics considered some of the best movies ever made. Eight and a Half really explores dreams in a not really dreams, like visions, in like a super weird way. It is also though really self. It feels like Fellini is just doing a movie about himself, which he is, of course. But it feels a little too self-congratulatory when he makes a movie where all the women love this guy, and Marcello Mastroianni. Um, it does that part bothers me a little, to be honest. The ending of the movie is great though. I like it a lot. The whole circus thing, which I'm not gonna spoil, even though I just did. Andrei Rublev is might be my favorite. Might be my favorite Tarkovsky movie. It's a little too long. I'll say that it could be a little shorter, especially part four or chapter four. With I think chapter four it is. Yep, it could have been a little shorter, but or is it chapter five? Anyway, yeah, no, chapter four. But the rest of the movie is just so. It's like a meditation, and a lot of Tarkovsky movies are like that. But it just shows this guy's life in 14th 15th century Russia, and that just speaks to me. It just speaks to me. 14th century Russia just speaks to me, and I don't know why. So I have to go with Andrei Rublev on this one. It's about a Russian icon painter, and it managed to not be boring. Uh, Now the White Ribbon versus the 400 Blows. They're two black and white movies, but the White Ribbons from 2009, and the 400 Blows are like from the 50s. It's like from the 50s, I think. Again, 400 Blows is great. I love the photography movie, for the photography of the movie, but it is a French, so I just have to give it to the White Ribbon. And the White Ribbon is also probably a better movie, even though it's not really about anything. It's just like life in the village. It. Do I really want to give it to the White Ribbon? I think they're okay. I think they're both equally good, but just gonna give it the White Ribbon because it's not French. It's German, and it's about like hate and control in pre-World War One Germany. Casablanca versus Aguirre, The Wrath of God. I really like Casablanca. I really love the piano scene. But Aguirre is just it feels I just have a soft spot for independent movies, and Aguirre is like the epitome of independent movies. I freaking love that movie. So I'm gonna go with Aguirre, The Wrath of God, and it has like Klaus Kinski, which is like playing this insane character, which obviously fits so well. And I think the director, I think Klaus Kinski wanted the director killed, Werner Herzog killed during the making of this movie. I think that was it, or maybe it was Fitzcarraldo. Both movies about the Amazon with Klaus Kinski actually. Although I think I prefer Fitzcarraldo. Anyway, we're not gonna get there today. Now, The Social Network versus Unbreakable. All right, here's the thing. Everybody loves Aaron Sorkin. I don't. I think I watched Moneyball and I watched some of his other stuff. I think he did great work in The Social Network, but that's kind of he didn't do anything else. Everything else just like sounds like Aaron Sorkin, and I'm sorry, I don't really like that, and that sort of gets in the way of my appreciation for this movie. However, the movie is just so interesting and has such good photography that it makes it great. It makes it great. I think what makes the movie great is like the directing more so than the writing, even though it is like a writer's movie. Now, Unbreakable. I wasn't expecting to love this movie. I remember seeing this movie when I was little, and even then I had like some problems with it. I didn't really like the ending, but when I watched it recently, I just thought it was so good, and I was just rooting for the David Dunn so much. It's like a weird take on weird different take on superhero, um, on like the idea of what a superhero is, and I just really like it. And it came out before the whole superhero fever thing. Man, this is hard. This is a hard one. This is a hard one. I have to go with The Social Network. I feel like Unbreakable is much more underrated. I feel like Unbreakable is underrated and that The Social Network's a little overrated, but I do think The Social Network's still better than Unbreakable. It's just like 10 times more famous than Unbreakable, so that's why I like Defend It. All right, I guess we're 75% of the way through round one. Yeah. And now Bicycle Thieves versus Perfect Blue. Um, I don't like the ending of Perfect Blue. I was confused by it, and I don't like it. Uh, it's not that I don't like not being confused. Sometimes it's good. Not now. I'm busy. What? 9. Yeah. Um, that was a roommate of mine. Anyway, Bicycle Thieves versus Perfect Blue. I don't like the ending of Perfect Blue. It's okay when an ending is confusing, but I don't like. It felt a little off. However, the rest of the movie does such a good job portraying schizophrenia, and it's so dark. Bicycle Thieves is great. It's just great, but Perfect Blue just speaks to me in a way that Bicycle Thieves doesn't. The ending of Bicycle Thieves, though, it's 100 times better than the ending of Perfect Blue. I will say that. Perfect Blue is still the better movie. Uh, Gangs of New York versus The Holy Mountain. You know, I hear a lot of bad stuff about Gangs of New York. When I watched it, I really liked it. People say it's like boring. I really, really, I love the character of Daniel Day Lewis. He much more than Leonardo DiCaprio. He's a much better actor. I'm sorry. Uh, but they're both great. They're both better than me. I'll say that. Well, who knows? I really find interesting the atmosphere of like this 19th century New York. I didn't know how it was, and I saw like a snippet of this film in like a history class, and like I have to watch this movie. I love how like the second act ends, and the rest of the movie is just about politics. I found it that so interesting. I love when like the third or the last third of the movie is like completely different from the rest of the movie, and that's the case with Gangs of New York. The Holy Mountain, though, is such a crazy fucking movie that I have to choose that. I just love it, and it's just about this guy who's just like Jesus, and he finds an alchemist, and they go to the Holy Mountain, and that's all. And it's so psychedelic, but in a way that's really meaningful. It's not just like random lull. It like has actual stuff to say about humanity, not just politically speaking. There's some political messages which I don't really care about. I'm not a fan of political satire and making fun of politics. I think that's a little cynical. But other than that, I really, really love the Holy Mountain. I wasn't expecting to like it so much. Now, oh my God, this is such a coincidence. No, it's not. No, never mind. I it says Throne of Blood versus Star Wars. I thought it was talking about the other Kurosawa movie, The Hidden Fortress versus Star Wars, because they say Star Wars is a ripoff the of that movie. Um, and I haven't seen that movie. However, I started watching it, and for some reason I stopped. I think maybe there was some problem with the codecs or something. Yeah, but Throne of Blood versus Star Wars. This is difficult. This is difficult. I have to think about this one. Um, Throne of Blood, I remember almost nothing about it, to be honest. But I remember really enjoying it. I remember really enjoying it, but because I had read I hadn't read, but I like read snippets of it in my literature class about the Shakespeare play. What's it called? That Throne of Blood is based on. It's called Macbeth. It's about Macbeth, and yeah, Yeah, I really like that. But Star Wars just influenced so much that I have to give a point to Star Wars. It's just everywhere. I mean, George Lucas is like a fucking billionaire because of Star Wars, right? It's crazy. Uh, and I love it. It's full of childlike joy in this movie. I do hear like some complaining that like, for example, a scene where some characters are killed is like there's not enough emotion. It's just like nothing. But it's not about death. It's about having fun. Um, yeah, and it's great. Call Me by Your Name versus Cries and Whispers. Call Me by Your Name is again just like Moonlight. It's a movie that I heard it was like gay, so it was a gay movie, and I'm like, oh, that's why it's on the Oscars. And then I watch it, and it's the most beautiful thing ever. It's just it takes place in Italy. The setting is like 100% of the movie. I feel like I am there, and that's not very easy to do in a movie. I think it's completely immersive, and it just has a really beautiful love story to add to that. I feel like watching it now. Yeah, sorry, Cries and Whispers is really interesting too. But I feel like Ingmar Bergman doesn't really understand women. I mean, I don't either, but I feel like I understand it more than him. And this movie is just for women, and they're crying and whispering. I feel like I wouldn't give this movie a 5 stars if I watched it today. Uh, it, of all these movies, I think this might have been like the 10 first ones that I watched. So I have to give it to Call Me by Your Name. Now, Train Spotting versus 12 Angry Men. 12 Angry Men is extremely. Both these movies are extremely rewatchable. But Train Spotting maybe. No, it's not like because I watched it last. It's. No, 12 Angry Men is great. It's amazing. But it's not Train Spotting. Train Spotting has an energy to it that I never seen anywhere. It's probably like the most energetic movie ever. I feel like I'm on drugs when I see it. I feel like I'm taking speed, which I also am. But we don't have to talk about it. It just has to go to Train Spotting. 12 Angry Men is great, though. Annie Hall versus Werkmeister's Harmonies. Or Workmeister Harmonies. Uh, Look, Woody Allen is great. I do like Annie Hall. It is sort of. I feel like the jokes don't really land, and it's really just he's a little annoying in it. Maybe that's the point, but I feel like he's annoying in real life. Uh, I feel like most people who marry their own stepdaughter are annoying. But Werkmeister Harmonies is like this Hungarian black and white movie, which is like 2.5 hours long and shot in like 30 takes. I think that's it, 30 takes. Let's see. How many takes? Now you can see all what I Googled. Just what did I Google? How many liters of water on Earth? How many grains of sand on a beach? I think I saw something about transistors too. How many transistors in a computer? Which is insane. Some computers have like 500,000,000 transistors. How did they do that? It's incredible. I want to know. But what was I gonna? How many shots on Werkmeister Harmonies? 39 shots. 39 shots per 145 minutes. I want to read the Roger Ebert review. Let me see. I hope he gives it 4 stars. Yes, 4 stars out of four because that's how Roger Ebert does it. How many shots on Stalker, by the way? It's probably more, like 100 or something. Yeah, 142 shots in 161 minutes, but that's still impressive. Yeah, I have to go with Werkmeister Harmonies. I love the way it portrays mob violence, which is a weird thing to say. Uh, but yeah, it's really dark, and it's like even though it's extremely realistic, it also has a sort of fantasy quality to it because it feels like the world that Bellatar is showing with this as a director. Uh, it feels like it's on the moon. It feels like it's another planet, and I think that's really, it takes a lot of talent to do. Um, I know it was based on a book written by Laszlo Krasnohorai, so of course he deserves the praise too. I'm sure it's not just Bellatar, especially consider Bellatar filmed it shot like basically shot for shot. Um, but it's, I think it's incredible. I think it's genuinely incredible the way Bellatar makes things seem otherworldly. Now, The Hunt versus Chungking Express. It's not even a question. It has to go to Chungking Express. Chungking Express, my second favorite movie, so obviously it's gonna win. The Hunt. The Hunt is a really messed up story about a guy who gets accused of doing something he shouldn't have. Yeah, get accused of getting something he didn't do, and basically this whole town turns against him, which is heartbreaking. And I think especially now, people should watch it. It's like about a canceling and stuff, which I'm not one of the. I'm not like a guy that complains about cancel culture a lot. I think a lot of that's valid, um, but it's like about a sort of witch hunt, and I feel like today there's that feeling of distrust upon everybody, and and like the message of this movie is like it's not a happy ending. I'm not gonna say what happens, but like it's not very positive. Like most of the director's work, which is a Danish guy. I forgot his name though. I have to give it to Chunky Express. It's a beautiful love story that I was expecting to be like the first time I watched it. I like needed a movie to sleep, and I heard, oh, there's like this Chinese romance movie. I know it's Hong Kong, but Hong Kong is part of China. It's a special administrative region. But yeah, and I just like I was mesmerized by it. I couldn't sleep after watching it. I like watched YouTube videos about it, about Tarantino talking about how much he loved this movie. Uh, it's incredible. It's incredible. Now, American Beauty versus First Reformed. Oh, oh man, I think First Reform is the only Paul Schrader. No, no, oh no. All right, is the only movie directed by Paul Schrader who that's in this list. Paul Schrader also wrote Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. But First Reformed is a really weird movie about a priest who who like a priest who wants to save the world from global warming, and it's just I love how weird the movie is, but I have to say a lot of the things in this movie were directly taken from Winter Sleep, and I think Paul Schrader denies that. I think he's like completely open about it, but that does bother me a lot after like I had seen Winter Sleep. It's not Winter Sleep. I keep saying Winter Sleep as Winter Light, right? Yeah, Winter Light. Winter Sleep is the Turkish movie which I haven't watched. Yeah, Winter Light. It and when I watched it, First Reformed, I still loved it, but I was like, you kind of stole from other movies, Paul. Now American Beauty is. I hear a lot of people saying like bad things about it. I don't get it. I don't get it how you can watch a movie and not just think it's amazing and beautiful. So I have to give it to American Beauty, especially the character of Ricky Fitz he's a lot like me because he's weird, but he's I think one of the greatest characters ever written. And yeah, now we're almost done. Finally, I can just go to sleep. Um, Come and See versus Inglorious Bastards, two movies about about World War II and Nazis. Um One of them is funny, and the other is Come and See. So I was just rewatching some scenes of Inglorious Bastards, uh, and I think it's just an incredible how tight the movie is. Because Tarantino said he wrote like 10 hours worth of movies, and he started wanting to do a mini series, but I'm glad he didn't, because you can see when you watch the movie, you can like feel how much how much the stuff were taken out and how much backstory there is, even though you're not showing it. It adds to the realism of the movie. All this backstory, all the things that are like mentioned and not shown, uh, or sometimes like just shown for a snippet of a second, which is like Hugo Stieglitz getting whipped for like 2 seconds, and then on like a flashback, he just has a flashback where he gets whipped, and it's never mentioned again. I just love that. But I heard somebody on Letterboxd say that Come and See is the most important movie ever made, and I thought about it, and yeah, it is. It is the most important movie ever made. Come and See is the most important movie ever made. It's heartbreaking. It's terrifying, and it's I never wish to see it again. But it's completely revolutionary. I thought there were enough war movies, and then I saw this movie, and I thought, okay, there are enough. There shouldn't have been any war movies after Come and See was done. I mean, after Come and See, it just should have been over. I mean, I love Dunkirk, but after Come and See, it just should have been over. There's nothing. There's nothing really that can be said about the devastation of war that hasn't been said in Come and See. I just, I love it. I love it. I love it. Every person that considers themselves a Nazi, which there are a lot of them in the internet. Maybe some are trolls, maybe some of them are Sam Hyde. But if you actually believe in Nazism, you watch this movie, and I think you won't like them anymore. At least I hope so. At least I hope so. Every second of this movie is real. Every second of this movie is real. Anyway, Django Unchained versus Sideways. Sideways is a, a cute 2000s movie starring Paul Giamatti, where he plays a guy that loves wine. So I mean, if you love wine, maybe this movie is for you. I do think it's really funny, and I do think it's like, yeah, I'm just laughing thinking about it now. I do think it has like a really big heart, but I'm kind of a Tarantino stan, so I have to go with Django Unchained. I have to go with Django Unchained, man. I love how I love how the movie like. All right, I'm not gonna say anything because I was just about to spoil it, but the ending's so good. The last scene with Dr. Schultz is so good. I couldn't resist. Okay, Downfall versus Everything Ever All at Once. Downfall is this great German movie about the last days of Hitler in his Hitler bunker, which I've been reading a lot about, and it's just fascinating. I wish the Soviets could have captured Hitler alive, man. That would have been so much better. Oh man, oh man, that would be so good. But they didn't. He killed himself. Sorry. Everything, everywhere, all at once is everything, everywhere, all at once, and maybe that might be too much for some people. I wouldn't recommend it if you sort of like don't like fast movies that have like a lot of information. So maybe that's not for you. Maybe if you like more chill movies, maybe watch Sideways and not Come and See, uh, because nobody should watch that, but also everyone should watch it. It's so trauma. I had a panic attack after watching that movie, by the way. Uh, I love how Bruno Ganz plays Adolf Hitler. I just forgot Hitler's name, by the way. But I don't think it can compare to the creativity and style and imagination of Everything Ever All at Once. I'm so happy it won the Oscar. Uh, yeah. Now, Amour versus Blade Runner. Amour is a movie directed by Michael Haneke. Haneke, That's how I say his name. His name is Michael Haneke, but nobody cares. Um, and I thought it was going to be like as the name suggests, it would be sort of like a melodramatic thing. But like all of his movies, it's pretty cold and pretty like distant. Sometimes even a little too much. So I'd say the ending is great. I mean, if you have seen, it's so unexpected, the ending. But Blade Runner is too good. I love it. I love every second of it. I love how slow it is. That just really puts you in that futuristic world. I love it. Now, Wings of Desire versus Lawrence of Arabia. That's a really hard one. Man, that's really hard. That's really hard. I'm just gonna think for a while. All right, Lawrence of Arabia. It's like completely this epic thing, and Wings of Desire is this really small personal movie about angels who change the people, change the people that they meet, that they pass by, and I really like that it's a story about humanity, even though it's about angels. And I like the poetry of the movie. I don't mean like I don't mean like metaphorically the poetry. Like there's actually like the movie starts with a poem, and the poem is like said throughout the movie, repeated, and written by Peta something. I forgot the guy his name. The co-writer of the movie. Man, I Wings of Desire is great, but I mean Lawrence of Arabia is so huge and epic. I have to go with it. I have to. This is hard to make. This is the hardest one, hardest choice that I have made. But I have to give it to Lawrence of Arabia just because of the incredible scope and how it manages not to be boring for a second in its 3.5 hour movie runtime. I have to give it to it. David Lean's masterpiece. Harakiri versus Mad Max Fury Road. This is also a difficult one. Uh, I love Mad Max Fury Road. I love it, but and I love how the director was also the director of Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2, Happy Feet in the City. I don't know what's his name, what the name of the movie. But Harakiri does a just like Rashomon. It has a really interesting take on perspective, and you start the movie with this character, and you sort of like hate him, and you think he's an asshole and or like immoral, like a thief, and then the later half of the movie just tells his story, and I find that really just completely changes the way you saw the character. I really love that. If I'm gonna write a movie, I wish I could sort of like have a movie about different perspectives. I'd love that idea. Anyway, the final two, let's go. I can finally go to sleep. The Irishman versus City of God. It's no question. It's City of God. City of God is amazing. City of God is incredible. Is again a movie about different perspectives, just telling the story about this slum, a story that takes place like through 20 years of this slum, and it does it in an amazing way. It's also full of energy, and it never stops. Incredible, incredible movie. The Irishman's pretty good. I was rewatching a couple of scenes. The CGI did bother me. I don't know how else they could do it. It was, I guess, innovative for the time, like um, making Al Pacino and especially Robert De Niro look like 20-year-old or 30-year-old guys. I don't buy it though. They still look like an old guy, and that bothers me a little. Uh, Other than that, really like I like the scene where it's like Al Pacino, who's not who Jimmy Hoffa in the movie. He's like, which is of German ancestry, and then the Irishman. He says, you want to go to, no, who somebody said something, and he's like, and Al Pacino's like, who? And it's like, I shouldn't say. Oh, you can say it. And like, oh, it was Tony. It was Tony. Like, Tony, which Tony? Everyone's Tony. Tony, Tony, Tony. It's like so funny. I remember being in the theater, found that scene so funny. Yeah, really, really great movie, but it doesn't, it's not near the fantasticness of City of God. Now, Once Upon a Time in America, I believe, versus Ran. Two movies in about 19. Once Upon a Time in America is from 1984 and Ran's from 1985. Uh, Again, Ran is another Akira Kurosawa adaptation of a Shakespeare play, this time King Lear. Might be my favorite Kurosawa movie, maybe. I need to rewatch it. I actually plan to rewatch this movie soon. Once Upon a Time in America is incredible. It's probably the longest movie on this list. It's like 3 hours 49 minutes. Yeah, 229 minutes long. And it's basically two movies, one after the other. Half the movie is about the childhood of this Jewish gangster Noodles. I love how Robert De Niro plays somebody who's supposed to be Jewish. Actually, I don't think none of the actors are Jewish. At least they don't look Jewish. They just look like Italians, or Irish guys. But I love how romantic it portrays New York at that time. I'm sure it is 0% realistic, but just Sergio Leone's romantic vision. I can't even fucking speak. I need to go to sleep. Sergio Leone's romantic vision just really, it's just a soft spot for me, and I love it. Not only in Once Upon a Time in America, but also in Once Upon a Time in the West, and a little more in Once Upon a Time in the West, a little, I guess, in his Clint Eastwood movies. He's kind of a romantic. He likes to romanticize the past, but yeah, it's a movie that's well worth watching. But Ran is so beautiful and does such a good job with color and also makeup. I think it's not Kurosawa's last movie. I think his last movie is Dodeskaden. I think that's what it's called. I didn't watch it, but it does feel like a culmination of his work in a really interesting way, and still manages to like be do something above that, not just be like a recollection of um, his early stuff, which I feel like The Irishman kind of is for Scorsese. I mean, it's great, but it doesn't really say anything new, in my opinion, that Scorsese hadn't said before in Casino, unless it maybe says like this life is not worth it, which Scorsese movies really never said that. They were really like, yeah, this life is 100% worth it. But yeah, I just have to go with Ran. Is a really incredible story and really rewatchable too, even though it's almost 3 hours long. Okay, okay, and we're done with round one. We're done with round one. My next video is gonna be round two. I didn't expect it to last so long. Man, the live stream's over 2 hours long. What the hell? Time does fly. Um, yeah, I mean, I just like to thank the people who watched this movie. I don't really know if anyone watched it, but thank you. This really makes me happy, and I need to find out how I stop the live stream. But yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna do the next round, but I am excited, and I do think this worked out well. Hopefully, next time I'm a little less tired though. Um, but yeah, let's see which movie makes the cut, makes it to round three. Put it write down in the comments if you think I've been unfair to any movie, and your thoughts on any of these movies. I'd love to read that. I always like reading this type of stuff. But again, thank you very much for the attention, and I wish you all a pleasant